Welcome to our podcast organized by Gender Budget Watchdog Network. Today, with Alexandru and Kristian, we're going to speak about men and gender equality. Let's get to it. Why is it important to have more men involved in gender equality, advocacy, and the movement as it is?
Gender equality is not just a woman issue. It's a fundamental human right that should concern each and every one of us. It requires a collective effort both from men and women, working hand in hand, and to create a world where every individual, regardless of their gender, can fulfill their full potential. Also, a man can amplify the message to everyone and to help to break the barrier of gender roles and stereotypes.
Do we have enough men involved, Kristian? Do you think we have to find strategies and ways to get more men involved, specifically in the region?
I do think that we might take into consideration of promoting more men to be involved, and this is only to break the stereotype that maybe gender responsive budgeting, but also gender issues are not just focused on the woman issues, but it's also an issue that involves both genders. And how do we say this? We can say that towards the fact that when we speak about gender equality, we want to create an environment where both genders interact together and they collaborate effectively within the society. So how can we get more involved? First, we can get men more involved about breaking the barrier of that stereotype, and secondly, promoting the fact that whether it is about the other gender, that's an issue that affects us, because we can take into consideration that when we speak about gender, we should understand that gender is also part of the family ties. So let's make it more practical. Like, would you think as a man, like if your wife has an issue or has a challenge that she needs to overcome, would you help her? And surely yes. Also when it's about your friends, your woman friends, your girlfriends and everything else. So in that sense, in that regard, men should be more involved into this idea about how we can advocate, but also how we can engage with local government and also civil servants in implementing better social policies where each needs and services of both genders are tackled.
Do you think the lack of information that even women and girls have sometimes about what what gender equality is about, it's the reason why we don't have more men involved? They don't know what this is about. They, as you guys said, they think this is a women's issue and they don't want to get more involved. Do you think we should like focus more on informing them what this is about and then get them to join?
I do believe yes in this regard, mostly to the fact of how we do widespread this information and how we do clarify the roles and responsibility of each gender in helping each other in order for us to implement but also construct better policies for our social goods, for our social life. Let's say, for instance, like if we engage as civil society actors with local governments when they are trying to implement like annual programs and etc. We know for the fact that civil servants might be focused towards the idea of accomplishing the goals, but sometimes they might neglect the fact about how these goals impact the genders. And this, we see it very often maybe in our region about like how some goals that the government or local government set as a directive are accomplished, and what is the impact that has been in both genders. Sometimes it's worse for each one of us, and we cannot exclude here men. Like also there are policies that might discriminate men too, in that sense. But also
you are already part of the movement, let's
Yes.
say, and you're working towards having a better, let's say, quality of life for all genders. Do you try to promote your work in everyday basis in the sense of getting more men to join? Like, do you share the perks of it? Do you say that it's too time consuming? Do you tell them that this is the way to go?
Okay, like in this question, I'm going to be more practical, let's say.
Sure.
Like to the fact it's not that, let's say in a funny way, that we take the sword and we take the shield and we go out and we advocate. But when I speak to friends about my work, we try to conceptualize it in a way that we see what are the things that society is missing right now, let's say in Albania. And we know for a fact that if we take like a simple example, that we need more more frequency, let's say, of public transportations in the city. And that's an issue that affects both men and women. But also, if we do focus more into adding this frequency in late hours, we know for a fact that this is going to benefit women also, same as men, but also women, in order for them to participate in the workplace and into the social economy about it. And to feel safe when they go back home, and also to aim the means of transportation provided by the state when they get back home, so they do not get this barrier in front of them where they are unable to participate into the workplace because the state or the society itself does not provide the services for them.
But in your conversation with your friends,
Yes.
with your male men friends,
Yeah.
do you tell them that it's very practical what you're working on and what you're working about in terms of impacting both men and women?
I mean,
Or they're not interested at all?
No,
They're
I mean-
just like, yeah, you're working in this NGO.
I have very modern friends that say for a fact. So every time we speak, like we are like a very mixed group of friends. Like as you can assume, as you can guess, like I do hang out with a lot of people, and when we do hang out, we always exchange ideas about what are the challenges that we face, not even as men and women, but also as youngsters, let's say, and also in our career, like what are the challenges that we face. And we always brainstorm with each other, like what could be the goods that we can promote into the future and the steps that we have to take further in our daily life in order to live better.
Yeah. You mentioned young generation. If we can go back to Moldova, how is the situation, you would say there, Alexandru, in the sense of, are young men like informed about a movement there, about the work that is being done to strengthen gender equality, or they're just careless? From your perception, we're not
From my perception,
generalizing.
we have a lot of stereotypes about the labor division, decision-maker actors. Also, we have appearance beauty standards that has begun from our families. So these stereotypes must be stopped. It will take time, force, and with the help maybe of the government, we can implement these policies in our life. Also, we need to change our lifestyle. Some celebrities said once that if you want to change the world, you must start by making your bed every morning.
We don't always make our beds.
I didn't make the bed today, sadly, but tomorrow I promise that I'll try.
Well, I think education is the most important.
Yeah.
It must be implemented also in curricula in the program schools to make more workshops and trainings for young boys and also for men.
Do you think there is enough political will for our governments to work towards having it like a subject in schools, meaning gender equality,
We
like
need to-
something that shows that also the government wants to be involved?
We need more capacity buildings for the government, for the representatives. That is very important. We don't have enough knowledge, also information about gender equality.
Even they don't have that information, which is a pity, because those are the lawmakers, and this is why, because it makes it like a civil society issue. It makes it like something that should be pushed forward from civil society, and not necessarily have that state impact and that government will to change everything. If we focus on gender responsive budgeting, let's talk like very practically when you meet with your friends. We're talking about men here, so I'm gonna need to know, how do they react to you even mentioning that name. Like, what is this about? What do you mean? Even the budget should be looked from a gender perspective. This is a overall, I would say, reaction from people when you tell them about gender responsive budgeting. Can you tell me how your circle of people perceived you working specifically in this issue?
Well, I might focus later on how my circle of people perceive that, but I might also share how I did that, how I did perceive that in the beginning.
Yeah, sure.
When I started like being engaged at Gender Alliance for Development Center, I was trying to understand more about like what has been the history of gender budgeting in Albania. And we know for a fact that we did have like the first attempts of gender budgeting in 2006, and then in 2008, the government started by itself drafting their annual budget and including a sector about gender budgeting programs. And nowadays we have engaged into specifying more programs into the budget about being gender-based in that idea. So if we get back to our questions, and when I do look at the legislation, I do perceive that it's important to have more programs gender-based, only to the fact that we can break the barriers about stereotypes about how men and women should be involved into society and how they can engage into the workplace and every other aspect of life. Let's say that all of us, we come from societies that both have lived into the communist. And back in the day, our life was very strict, and it was like written as a manual about like what everybody was expected to do. So we kind of have this sense of at least in the older generation, about the expected responsibility that each gender must have into the society. But nowadays, since all of our societies are trying to be more democratic and integrate more like European values to our culture, we kind of trying to make this transition from expected responsibilities on both men and women to shared responsibilities from both men and women. So how do we see that? We see that being like as form of conceptualization about our behavior, how we do integrate with each other. And for instance, I can say that during my work, I see that there is a target group of people that they are challenging to accept that idea. And even when they accept that idea, they are like stuck with the fact that the society itself does not provide the services for both gender to have shared responsibilities. And what do I say that? I do say that also about the fact how both men and women do share their responsibility within their family space. And for instance, let me take you for you an example. We do have that problem when we advocate into municipalities about how they manage waste, how they deal with waste management. And we know for a fact that considering that people that are part of the older generation, 35 years old plus, most of the women have this expected responsibility that comes from their education from the past. They should be more involved into the family roles. About they should stay more into the house, and they also expect themselves to provide more services within the house after they finish their jobs, their works. And how do I make the correlation with waste management? The fact is that if cities themselves, they do not have a better service, an efficient service about waste management and about how they do collect wastes from families, we know for a fact that this affects more women too, because they are the ones who are going to face this issue most of the times during their days. And
do your friends interrupt you when you're
no,
telling
I
all
do
of
talk
this?
too much
Because
somehow.
let's go back to my question. How do they react? And not only friends, family, people that you work with, when you stay, because gender, you mentioned, we started working on gender responsive budgeting a long time ago, but still, to people, it's a very not familiar term, very not familiar field. So when you mention that is specifically what you're working on, what's the reaction? Because that can tell us how much work we need to do in terms of informing them to join that.
They're very supportive, but they kind of might not get it.
Yeah,
But not get it in the sense that why are you involved, but might not get it about how we can advocate for this. Like, what is the methodology that we should use as private individuals in order to promote it. Let's say, but this is also in every other sector in Albania, for say.
I must say that my friends, I talked about this project, and they are gender neutral or gender blind. Not everyone knows what is gender responsive budgeting. I try to explain them that if no country can truly develop if half of its population is left behind, so it's very important to have this gender responsive budgeting, this analyze this tool. Also, I'm explaining that this benefits also not women but men. You have about health, safety, economic development, decision makers, every aspect of the country can prosper, can improve.
Apart from informing men what this is about and getting them to join, do you think we should also focus on promoting, as you said, that this benefits them too? And then we will have them
Yes.
want to join.
Men want to see what they have from this, what is the advantage. So it's the most important tool we cannot change people, we can influence them.
Do you think in Moldova and in Albania soon we're gonna have specifically gender responsive budgeting regulated by law and very obligatory for each financial organization to follow these steps soon?
I do believe so, because in Albania we do have like a gender budgeting part of by obligatory means, part of on the state level, but also in the local governmental level. So maybe if we do continue with these steps and we do advocate more, we might also see it implemented and adjust to other institutions as well.
Okay. What about Moldova?
We had recently have a workshop in Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. It was a representative from Ministry of Finance. That is very important, so they know about this program and the future plans that has country.
Okay, I know we're very short on time, but I'm gonna need you guys to send a message to men out there, especially young boys. Why do they need to join? And let's end it with those messages. This short podcast. Why they should join right now the movement.
Well, do it for your mom.
Do it for your mom. Sure.
I think it's the future.
It's
the gender equality will be the future, and now it's maybe. We can took the model from the Iceland. It's one of the leaders in gender equality. All the men, mostly the men, are very supportive in the initiatives of the women. This country has implemented gender equality policies, legislation about payment, equity payment, and political representation. So yeah.
I love it. Let's end it with this is the future. So let's all join this movement and for better quality of life. Thank you. Thank you for following our podcast. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.